First off, could you just introduce yourselves, your names, maybe where you're calling in from, and since this is a different kind of series, maybe your age too, so we can ground ourselves in historical
Uh,
data.
yes, I'm Carol. I live in Portland, Oregon. I am 71 years old.
My name is Peg, and I also live in Portland, Oregon, and I happen to live with Carol. I'm 77 years old. I'm going to be 78 years old.
Wow.
Oh,
Congratulations.
next year. Soon.
Next week. Yes, I'm actually 70, getting ready to turn 71 in about a week and a half.
So even in your 70s, you play mind games around age numbers. Toddler nephew is very excited about. He's almost four. He's not really almost four, but
He's
talk about it that way.
Yeah.
I love when you talk in half years.
Exactly. Exactly. Cool. Well, one question I wanted to start out with, just speaking of age, I'm very curious to ask what some of your earliest memories around gender are. Did you see it operating around you or in the world? What did you think of gender roles when you were growing up?
I was always a tomboy. I went to Catholic school, so we had to wear skirts and stuff. I always kind of fought it, but that was the way it was. And as far as determining gender roles, probably pretty early, say 5, something like that. And I didn't ever really fit the mold. I tried, but anyway, here we are 70 years later, and still kind of the same. Carol's going on 12.
Gender entered my consciousness I was young, in grade school, because of altar boys. There are no altar girls. There are only altar boys. And that I couldn't get over that. It's just, that was the question that was always on my lips. Why can't I be an altar boy? They should have altar girls.
Altar persons.
Yeah, I didn't know then about that kind, but that was my very first objection. And then when I got to high school, girls weren't allowed in pool halls because that was a bad environment for ladies, young ladies. So it just seemed kind of crummy. It just didn't seem fair to me.
Or when we were in high school and you wanted to take a foreign language as an elective, that was offered. If you didn't feel up to it, you could take shorthand or typing or homemaking for the girls. Girls could not take shop. Boys had shop. It was very cut and dried, girls and boys.
So predominantly, it sounds like it felt like an experience of limitation. I'm not hearing either you saying like you necessarily wanted to be boys, but you perceived this very clean delineation between what they had access to and what you had access to, and you're like, why is that? That doesn't make sense.
Oh God.
That's true. That's very true. And the additional limitation to that was if you wanted to dress like a boy, if you wanted to act like a boy, then you were censored. Don't sit like that. Don't splay your legs out. Don't run around and get all sweaty. Behaviors were intense.
I had one sister, Jane. She was older than I was, and both our parents died by the time I was 10. Jane was about 16 or so, and so we moved in with an aunt and uncle, and that was my first time living with a boy. And Bill had cowboy boots. Bill had high-top tennis shoes. I wanted them so badly, and no, I had to get my most casual shoe would have been a Legion, like a loafer. It wasn't fair. I was about 10 then.
It wasn't fair.
No.
So you both went to Catholic school?
Yes, we did.
Was this in that? Did you grow up? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
And I grew up in Evansville, Indiana.
Is going to Catholic school a coincidence, or does this figure into the love story and shared trauma in some way?
That's probably a very good base.
A lot of our friends are Catholic, including Missy, and we share common stories all the time.
There's a joke. Well, it's not so much a joke, but we all say it. I can spot a Catholic girl at 20 yards. It's like in the bar, Catholic girl for sure.
How do you do it? What are the signs? What Catholic? It's like Catholic gaydar.
Well, usually this is not all the time, but usually good teeth. And they often have dark hair because they're probably Irish or Italian. They carry themselves in a sense that's different. A little bit, not cocky, but a little bit of confidence, I think, in the Catholic girls. What do you think?
That is fascinating.
Self-confident, I think, is like free to be sporty. I think that there's a sense of confidence from Catholic school.
Down too, I got in trouble pretty much daily.
That's probably what made you strong.
I guess so.
And that's what they would say. Oh, God will not send you a trouble that you can't hold, that you can't do, that you can't face. So he won't send you a burden that you can't handle.
Is that in particular to Catholicism, or is that more broadly Christianity? I don't know. I wasn't raised with any of this at all. So, but I feel like it's something I've heard a lot, and I'm curious.
So how were you raised? What was your?
I wasn't raised with any religion per se. I would say my mother was raised Christian in the very lackadaisical. We're Americans, so by default, you live in California, I guess, for Christians, but like never went to church or anything like that. And then my dad was Jewish, but he was Jewish in a small town in upstate New York where they were the only Jewish family in town, and they didn't like fall and just kind of assimilated. So then I wasn't raised practicing anything. So
you were raised Californian.
I was raised Coloradan, which I would say, which is actually probably accurate. I think the closest to religion I grew up around was the kind of spiritualism that is pretty endemic to people who live in Boulder, Colorado.
And that's Portland, Oregon too. So neither of us practice religion. We say we're recovering Catholics, but I think it had a very good education, although it was a little limited in what I could take because my high school wasn't that big.
I do hear that the Catholic religion is real. So I went on to study classics and learned Greek and Latin, and people that I was in graduate school with had come from Catholic schools.
Yeah, it was your first language that you had to take. You had to take Latin. A given. It was like, God bless this language. I don't know why they made us do it, but
I wish I had taken it. It made more sense.
It certainly helps. It certainly helps a lot.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, actually, before I ask that question, so Misty has told me that you have an extraordinary story around meeting and falling in love. Are you willing to share that story?
It's not extraordinary.
It is pretty sweet, actually.
Okay.
You can tell the story.
No, you're a better storyteller.
I
just give facts. You give stories.
Okay. So I was working in a school that was outside of Indianapolis. It was a middle school, and it was very, times, and it was it had the capability to make your rooms larger. So if we wanted to have a lesson for whatever classes were going on there were 3 classrooms in my little module. I taught 8th grade science, that Terry taught 7th grade, and I can't remember the other guy. But anyway, I was absent one day, and I was having my lesson, and I didn't know who Peg was, and she was next door. And so after the day was over, she came over, and she told me, I loved your lesson. It sounded like the kids were really engaged and blah, blah.
I could hear the kids. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. We didn't have walls. We had these things called, I forget. Anyway, they were like cubbies. They were on wheels, and everybody had one to put their stuff in. It was a place of lockers. And anyway, so we met, and then she would substitute teach lots of different classes in my school. So she was a regular. We saw her a lot. And somehow, I don't know, we had a day where.
Let me put it something, because Jersey like this one. I was in language arts department. Carol was in science department, but I could hear the class. I could hear Carol over, tops of the dividers. And at the time, I was going through a divorce, and I was in Indiana living with my ex-husband, and I had not a single friend. And so I came to the school, and one day I hear this voice. I met people, but I heard this voice, and I said, I want to know this person. I like this person. I like the way she's running her classroom. I like her voice. And so I went over and introduced myself. I said, hi, I like your lesson. And I stalked her.
So
I love it. Was this, had you been, okay, well, first of all, were you attracted to each other initially, or was this just a friendship? Had either of you been with women before this?
I was in another relationship as well. I mean, a lesbian relationship, not straight. And I did kind of, and then, invite her over when we would do like a fire circle. So we'd have fires at night and just stuff like that. And we also had this big woods and, mushroom hunting over there. And
I would have to say that I was gay curious without knowing that those were the words. It's like, oh, these women look like they're having a lot of fun. They have a lot of friends. We're doing things that I would like to do. Kind enough to invite me along, not knowing I was stalking. So we did those things, and I started to find myself. But I thought very clearly to myself one day, am I attracted to this woman? Am I a lesbian? And I looked in the mirror and said, you're a lesbian. And it's like, oh no, oh no, look at me, I'm not a lesbian. Turns out I was
Did
wrong.
did it feel that did it feel that definitive? Like to be attracted to a woman? I mean, I presume you were attracted to your husband at one point. Did it immediately feel like, okay, this is the case, then I am definitely a lesbian?
It felt so that I hadn't discovered it before. Like, where have you been? So all of that artifice around any other relationship, like, wonder.
This
No
is
wonder
what's
this is
going
what's
on.
going on with me, and I didn't know myself. So it was a relief, truly.
And me too. And we went through a year where we tried not to see each other. I mean, didn't, but then every now and then we would. And so,
why? Just because you were still in that other relationship?
yeah, I was still she was still married.
I had 2 kids, 2 little children, 2 small children.
Okay.
And like, we're not going to fool around. You know, that's not right.
It's too hard.
Yeah.
Too hard.
It's too hard.
Now so anyway, Peg showed up at my school at the end of the day and had written me a card. And she, it was very, very heartfelt. And I went home that day and I go, I can't do this. I tried DC, but this is not working for me. And we need to end this relationship. And we did. And lesbians are, we broke up and we were friends, and now we are not friends, but that's another whole story. So anyway.
And you two immediately got together?
Well, then she called me and said, I left my part. I've left her. And I said, okay.
She's moving out, man. I'm keeping this house. I had it first.
So I immediately said to my husband, who had said, is that what you want? You want a divorce? It was getting really pretty bad between us. And I said, I want a divorce.
And then everything worked out.
And everything worked out. In hindsight, everything was honky-dory. During the time, we were a little crazy. I was a little crazy. I mean, I don't think I was stable. I could have used some help. Yeah.
Then the shit hit the fan, because when my partner DC and I broke up, she's one of those people that gets involved with somebody almost immediately. Been together for, I think, years. And I knew when we got together that she was not the one, but we had a good time together and sex was okay, and it's fine. And so when she broke up, she ended up an affair with the president of the PTA. Well, then the whole community blew up. They knew I was gay. I'm certain of it. And DC worked at an elementary school that fed into my middle school, and I'm pretty positive they knew she was gay, but they just flat out tells me to come into the superintendent's office, and I am there, and he tells me, you are assigned to at home. And I said, what does that mean? You just stay home and we'll pay salary for a half of a year, and then you will go on unemployment. And I was like, I'm like, and what's the reason? Well, you're a lesbian. And I said, that's hearsay.
He actually said it in the meeting?
Yeah. Anyway, wow. It was bizarre. This was 1987.
And it is legal. And a lawyer said that. I'll let you finish.
Anyway, so I got a union representative and met with them. And they said, you fight this and there's a good chance you'll win, but, go back to the same job you had. And at that point I was like, I'd feel horrible. That would be every person in the community. My kids, they might have caught on, but
don't care.
They don't care. They loved me. And so anyway, that's what happened. And I still resent it, like 1987, it shouldn't have been that way. But anyway, I got another job and then got one out here. When we moved out here, this is how much more progressive could get Peg's domestic partnership without any kind of documentation or anything. We're happy here.
Wow. I don't know which one of you it was, but Missy had mentioned that one of you had, I don't know if they had the language for identifying as trans back in the day, but that one of you had like a trans child that you were teaching back back then, and
Oh,
that you
no,
then hunted them down and sent them both hands?
yes, I did. His name's Sage, and he was not a pretty girl, and he's not even a prettier boy, but he's happy in his body. And he posted this thing on Instagram where he had made a shirt, and it was V-neck in the front and V-neck in the back, and it had like scalloped sleeves. And I'm like, so I was like, hey, Sage, this company, they might have some wear that you might like. He said, I've not heard of them, but I will. So I don't know if he will. But
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was touched by, we're talking about it, and it seems like you were an incredibly supportive teacher to him
oh,
back in the day. And I guess I'm curious, you didn't really have the language around this stuff back then. So like what did you perceive? What oh, it wasn't that long ago?
this did not happen that long ago. This was in the 2000s. It was probably around 2015, 16, something like that. But he was in she was in my class, and she had a crush on this other girl, and they would hold hands and that kind of thing, and see him kiss and blah blah. And then the next thing he's wearing a binder, and nouns changed, and it was. I was proud of him. I said, it's hard for me to come out as a lesbian. This is a much bigger task. This is much harder. And he seems pretty happy. So, and they are partnered with someone that I think is also trans. So equally, sorry to say this, unattractive. They're not a handsome couple, but they're happy. So
that's what matters. Happiness is what matters. What do you think? Well, I guess let me preface this with a little story of my own. I didn't really, I think, didn't clock it at the time. I didn't really have the language of the framework, but in retrospect, I realized I had this English teacher in high school. It was an AP literature class, and I had a really good relationship with her. I was very I love literature, so I was very opinionated and talkative in class. I remember she brought me the VHS at the French movie Tomboy. I don't know if either of you have seen it, but it's about this young kid who clearly in the language for it now is a trans child who moves to this new village and is at first kind of read as male, kind of from there, the drama that ensues. But I loved this movie, and I remember it felt really important, and I made my parents watch it, and probably meant a whole different layer to them. But in retrospect, looking back on it, it's like, oh, wow, that was like very specific and very graceful way for an educator, an older person to not send me down and be like, listen, I know what you are. Here's what you are. You need to listen to me, but just be like, hey, here's this thing. Like, it could be interesting to you. So yeah, I guess my question is like, you're both educators, or you were educators. What do you think educators, what can and should the role be for youth who you kind of are grappling with all this stuff?
Have helped several kids in this. I was doing I can't remember why I had changed. Somebody, one of my teacher friends had a meeting they had to go to, and I said on my prep period I would cover her class, and so they were doing this journaling, and this kid, I'm just kind of looking, said, I see his thing, and it's like something about I want to kill myself, I don't deserve to live, and blah blah blah, and so I immediately referred him to our guidance counselor, and I knew he was a gay man. I think he's transitioned, but no, he was a boy. He would not have transitioned, but he was in 6th grade, and I bet he thanked me like times for referring him to her, because he got, left there feeling good about himself, and that, who you are, and you got to make what you can. You have to kind of toughen up a little bit, but
I think that one of the jobs that educators have, and I guess we all are in some respect, educators, to get acceptance, first of all, acceptance, and to be who we are, to set an example, me. And if this is you, then it's okay. And then to help them with resources like Carol did. So this is what you maybe want this, like movie. You might like this, talk about this. Yeah. So let me know that you're there.
And I think that probably now, we used to have, I taught health for a couple of years, and we would have guest speakers come in and like talk about AIDS and that kind of thing. And I bet I mean, teachers, we had, I'm going on a tangent, I do this sometimes, but anyway, they would hand out resources for them, to basically getting condoms and those kinds of things. But it was good for the kids to have a real life example. And I'm sure that there are people in classrooms that bring in people that talk about, like, to get educated about the pronouns and, binary and cis and all this stuff. And I didn't know all that stuff, still, tells me stuff all the time. I go, what's AFAB? Signed female at birth. And I was like, oh, okay.
It is. It's a whole new vocabulary. It is a vocabulary. Good. It's a vocabulary.
I doubt very many. I bet a lot of people do not know anything about that. And a lot of them will be voting against who we believe should be president. They don't really give a shit. Make sure I get a lot of money.
Yeah. I would say even amongst liberals, especially in older generations, there is a resistance to how much language is shifting and all of these new. Okay, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yes.
And I see both sides. I empathize with how many new frameworks and how you can also feel kind of if you aren't immediately already on top of everything. And on the other hand, I think it's beautiful and wonderful that people are coming up with far more nuanced ways of describing their experience.
Agreed.
So speaking of which, I as far as I know, neither of you identify as transmasculine or non-binary, but guess I'm curious, given that I do run a clothing company, I'm curious to hear kind of what role clothing does or doesn't play in your life, or how it has kind of feel accurately represented in the world throughout time.
Well, I always preferred boys' clothes. They fit me better. I can get something that fits my waist, and I don't have big hips and a big butt, so they fit me much better. My other big thing is I hate women's clothes for the fact that your hands go in about this far. You can't even put pockets. You can't put a phone in your pocket. I'm happy with men's clothes, but they don't fit me all that great, especially like a more dressy shirt. A t-shirt, who cares? But a dressier shirt should be more tailored. And so oftentimes I buy women's blouses, and I will also buy, women's like pants and stuff like that for dressing up. But I'm pretty much, sweatpants, t-shirt. Peg is much better dresser than I am. So anyway, so clothes do not play a big role in my life. I like the things I like. And yeah. I'll buy like 7 pairs of the same kind of shorts because I know I don't have to try them on. They're going to fit and that kind of thing. But I'm not a clothes horse at all. Peggy is.
All right. Sounds like Peg. We got to hear you.
I like to, watch what people wear, and I like to wear what it looks, what I think is fashionable, looks good. But I find that I'm short, and I'm not real slender. I'm not tall and skinny. So if you buy something, you often find that it's too narrow and no pockets, like Carol said, and a little too femme, and what do I don't mean that, but a little too flirty. I want something a little bit more substantial that serves its purpose. Is it a sweater? Then it should keep me warm. Is it a sweatshirt? It should have a hood. Those kinds of things that you don't find in the fashion aisle. But you wouldn't catch me shopping at the Army Navy surplus.
But Peg finds all kinds of good shit because she's got a cute little figure. I don't know why she says that, but anyway, she finds all kinds of stuff at Marshall's. She'll go, Carol, go look for something. No, I hate to shop. I like it to get delivered.
Yeah, this is a boon for Carol. And they come to the door. Oh, 4 of those? Okay, 4 of these? Okay. We got it.
I don't mind paying the postage, but anyway. But I love the way that sweatshirt fit, that I don't know the name of it, that Jersey sent, we call Missy Jersey. But anyway, Missy sent me, it's like beautiful blue.
Oh, it's gorgeous blue.
Gorgeous. And it says both hands on it. And it fits me perfectly because every sweatshirt I get, I got to roll up the sleeve. So the sleeve length is right. The length of it is right. And it's just high quality. So that's why I liked it. So I bought another one, and I bought one for Peg. So now we all have every color except black, I think.
And that's
I think the black sold out, so I think you're all set.
Well, there you go.
I got the green one.
Got gold.
Yeah, the thing about those kinds of really practical pieces that you need for the beach, that you need for your walks in the park in the fall with the dog. You don't want something that's really long that was made for a man. You have to roll up the sleeves and it looks fashion conscious, looks sloppy. Let's have something that actually fits me. And it's short, it doesn't hang down to almost my knees and look bad. It fits. And plus it's high quality fabric. I like that a lot. Good job.
I'd rather pay more and get something that's going to last me a long time than get something.
Yeah, because that means you have to. Well, that's a lot of things that are throwaway fashions. It's okay this year, but next year it's not going to be all right. So you'll feel like you need
Excuse
a new
me.
one. But these are the kind of things that. And when you get to be my age, you don't spend time shopping for. You know what I mean? It's like I have this dress. And I like this dress, and I'm going to wear this dress probably till I'm dead. It's I can. This is going to last until I'm dead. So, and that's kind of a joke, but it's kind of the truth too.
Yeah, fair, very fair. Well, given that you referred to as the owls, the old wise lesbians, I think I would like to close on the question of extracting some wisdom from you, which and I think in kind of a general sense, I mean. Whether you're lesbian or trans or straight, cis man, I mean, we all go through so many different kind of permutations of identity and struggles or doubts around it. I think if you were, especially through the lens of you being educators, if you were to offer wisdom to middle schooler right now who's at home and is trying to figure out their gender or sexuality or just their place in the world, feels very alone in that, what wisdom would you share?
It's a tough one.
That's a heavy one.
My whole thing is I feel like you have to be yourself. You have to, try your best to find what is good about you and embrace that. And then try to surround yourself with people that accept you and you accept them. And what else can you do? I don't know. I mean, I've got that whole thing that nobody's better than me, but I am 70 years old. But I think I thought that at 25, it's kind you go through stuff and it's like you come out the other side and you're stronger.
And that is wisdom, pushing through the stuff and coming out the other side. You gain some wisdom. That's what that is. And encourage them to keep pushing. You can go, you can do this. Yeah. So
I know. And I think that given how things are right now, as a kid, who knows, I might have decided I was trans. Because I sure love the boys. I mean, I really liked because they seemed to have more privileges than I did. I was a tomboy. I played with, as a kid, and I don't know. I like being a woman, but I mean, see how that maybe when it was a little more accepted, I would have maybe
or even thought about. I don't remember ever even experiencing that in my vocabulary or in my world. It was not thought of in my existence.
I remember when I was a kid, they were so hermaphrodite, like, oh my God, that was the craziest thing ever, imagine. And, I mean, I guess we all kind of through that stuff. I remember asking my aunt that I grew up with, so I had to have been 10 or 11. I'm like, Aunt Carol, what is a homosexual? And she was so cool about it. She just said, it's when an individual prefers someone the same sex as they are, or something like that. A woman who is attracted to a woman or a man who is attracted to a man. And I was like, oh, okay. Maybe that's what I am. So anyway.
Definitions help. Give us guideposts amidst the suffering wisdom.
Yeah.
God, and you just come out the other side. I remember we were at Gay Pride many years ago, and this woman, Sarah Springs, asked me, ever have what was it like growing up and being gay in the 80s? And so it's like, oh, I lost a job. And she's like, oh my God, we really owe you. And I was like, I wasn't the only one, believe me, but yeah, it happened to a lot of people. So yes, it's good.
Yeah.
Glad I'm done with it and who I am, and it's it's a little scary to me about our upcoming election, but I'm trying not to think about it because who knows if the shit's going to hit the fan again.
I was thinking of Oscar Wilde. We haven't come very far. Very far. He was incarcerated for being a homosexual and died from his time in prison.
And that was in what, early 1900s?
Yeah. And then people who were
late 1800s.
Yeah, just we haven't come very far. I feel like we've been clawing at a problem that we haven't. Maybe in the big picture, we're just a little tunnel vision here. So maybe in the big picture, it will be better. But they were stoning people like us in biblical times.
Yeah,
I think the generation growing up really is much more open-minded. I mean, the kids at my school were totally fine with, gay people. And there's a whole, they do this thing about Ally Week, and kids would wear pins and they weren't, everybody could have worn them. They didn't all choose to, but most every kid had one on. You're like, good. So our guidance counselor tried hard to, like, she had I don't know if it was called a gay club, but she had a club that, kind of helped those kids along that had those feelings. So
let's wrap it on a positive note of the openness of the youth and to the good educators who facilitate that and are ushering in space of acceptance and love for everyone in our many different shapes.